So we are in Chapter 4, we're in Section 2, and you've already heard two videos on, one was on Addition Rule 1 and the other on Addition Rule 2. I cannot stress enough that you do not move on to the next concept or concepts until you really have solidified what is going on in each of these concepts. So I'm ending this section with a video where I just want to comment about make sure that on your formula card you are noting, highlighting, underlining, but keeping it minimal so that you don't overcrowd your formula card and it's still readable during the test. So here when it says Addition Rule 1, mutually exclusive, point out similarities, point out differences. The addition rules have the ors. The multiplication rules have the ands. So do all of your normal learning skills, all the things that you do, go ahead and do those to try to understand, again, solidify what's going on in these ideas. So here in Chapter 4, and in this section, you just heard a video on Addition Rule 1. So I am on page 210. Before we get to Addition Rule 1, make sure you really understand what mutually exclusive means. And that means you're looking at these examples, you're listening to the video, you're working through and making sure that you don't have any rough edges, like I'm still not really sure, I couldn't do these by myself. Make sure that you really understand what is going on with mutually exclusive. Make it make sense, like looking at this bottom example. I put page 195 because it's talking about the cards, and that's back where the picture of all the cards is located. And then at the top of this page, we're on 211, where you're looking at a Venn diagram. Whatever makes sense to you, that's what you need to hang on to, think on, but mutually exclusive has got to be crystal clear in your brain. And you might want to make an index card, put mutually exclusive on one side, and then maybe the Venn diagram on the other, or maybe one of these examples, just whatever makes the most sense to you, because you need to know that when you can identify events are mutually exclusive, then that's when you're going to pull out maybe this problem right here, or this formula. And it is going to take a lot of thinking, a lot of playing around with these ideas. This is and can be a difficult chapter. So start by knowing what mutually exclusive is. Start by realizing when it says or and you identify that it's mutually exclusive, then you're going to use this as your formula. Here it is in our book. Here is an example, and again, don't move on to the next part of this chapter or this section until you could do a problem like 417 all by yourself with no help other than you pick up your formula card, get the formula, know that that's the one you need, and then solve it from there. I want to go to the next page, which is 212, and point out that these probability rules, the ones that we were just talking about, the Addition Rule 1, can be expanded to 3 or more events. And then it moves on to say when events are not mutually exclusive, then we're going to go pick up Addition Rule 2. That is here in your book. It is here on your formula card. Both of these need to make really concrete sense to you. You may want to make a card, and then on the card you may want to put this Venn diagram where you know that there is overlap. That's my favorite word, is that these have overlap. And play around with words. Ask people in your home, what does this mean to you? Can you explain this differently? Can you explain it better? But looking here, this formula is kind of scary because it's so long, but if you look at the front end of it, it's what we had, where we add in the two probabilities, but then we have to subtract the and part. We have to subtract the overlap. So again, do not keep going on this section to another section until these make crystal clear sense in your brain, such that you could cover up this part, you could read this, and then you could go replicate, solve this problem without the use of notes, other than You could pick up one of these examples and know that it's either mutually exclusive or not. You could use that formula and solve it to the end and get it correct. I also want to point out at the bottom of this page that the events that we just talked about on addition rule 2, it says for these that are not, you can use them for more than one probability, but it gets pretty involved because you put the 3 probabilities together, then you have to subtract that overlap, subtract that overlap, subtract that one, and then add back in a triplet. We will be sticking to the mutually exclusive that look like this, but anything is possible in the study guide or in your homework. That finishes up our section. I just wanted to do a summary, a look back, just a large amount of encouragement to really not move on to the next section until this section makes sense. And don't forget to use our resources. Our tutors are very valuable. Use our online resources. We talked about in our Zoom the other day about how you can use other resources that you really like if you want to search in YouTube and find somebody's video from around the world that makes a whole lot more sense than either what you've seen in these videos or of what I have just been explaining. Find what works for you that makes these concepts really snap, pop, just really be understandable for you. Don't quit. Don't give up. Keep making these things make sense to you before you go on.